Welcome back to Boilers and Beyond. I'm Jordan Jones, coming to you after quite the day. Purdue football kicked off fall camp today, had its first practice this morning, followed by Tommy McClelland's introductory press conference as the 5th athletic director of Purdue University, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. I'm coming here after what's been quite the day. It really has been. Spent the day up in West Lafayette, so we're going to talk about Tommy McClelland's hire. We're going to talk about Tommy McClelland's press conference because there's some stuff to talk about there. So let's go ahead and dive on in. If you don't, be sure that you're following the show on Twitter at Boilers Beyond. We're talking all things there. We're talking Tommy McClelland. We're talking football. We're talking basketball. We're talking big picture college sports here with the Protect College Sports Act. All of that. Come join the conversation on Twitter at Boilers Beyond. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. We are everywhere. Be sure to subscribe, give the show a positive review, and always feel free to send in questions. You can do so on Twitter at Boilers Beyond. You can email the show, boilersandbeyondpod@gmail.com. You know, the day started, and I really just figured I was going up to West Lafayette, and it would be a fairly basic introductory press conference, and I would come back here to my house in Indianapolis and talk about it a little bit, and that's what we're going to do. I will start by acknowledging the obvious, acknowledging the elephant in the room, and that is the 5-second clip of Tommy McClelland's press conference that has gone absolutely viral. The quote about if you don't want to win championships, then go to Indiana. Obviously, he's been getting dragged on social media for this. Quite the bold statement, right? It's very Cignetti-esque, right? Curt Cignetti grabbed the mic at Assembly Hall and said that Purdue sucks, and so does Michigan and Ohio State. And within 2 years, he beat all three of them and won a national title. Within 2 years. I don't know if that's what Tommy McClelland was going for here. I can only imagine that there is some type of connection to that. Where my mind has gone ever since that happened, and trust me, when I was sitting there in the Union today, as soon as I heard him say that, I knew this was probably the way it was going to go. But I don't know if Purdue's communication folks read his speech or not beforehand. I'm going to assume they did not, because if they did and they let this go through, that was a major error. The fact that this quote happened, that this quote has gone viral, really has no impact on whether Tommy McClelland will be successful as Purdue's athletic director or not. It has absolutely nothing to do with his qualifications for the job. It is never a great thing when the first impression for the vast majority of the public is something negative, something that you are being ridiculed for, something that has gotten the attention of almost every college sports commentator out there. You're seeing the biggest names in college sports media replying with things like oof or drugs or things like that. That is never ideal. That's never the way you want to start your tenure. The folks in Bloomington will have plenty of fun with it. I am sure that if Curt Cignetti had any inkling that if the Purdue-Indiana football game goes the way the last two has, that he would let up. I would imagine he will not. Indiana's not really afraid to push the pedal to the metal there to begin with. An unfortunate quote, though. That's what I'll just say about that. It's an unfortunate quote because I thought it was a really strong press conference. Tommy McClelland was introduced as the 5th athletic director of Purdue University. It is wild to think that this is only the 5th athletic director Purdue has had. Red Mackey, George King, Morgan Burke, Mike Babinski, now Tommy McClelland. McClelland's 44 years old. He's from the state of Louisiana. He played both football and threw the javelin at Northwestern State University. a pretty interesting background. He was an athletic director at 26 years old at McNeese. Then he spent time at as the athletic director at Louisiana Tech. Spent 3 years as a deputy AD at Vanderbilt before spending the last 3 as the AD at Rice. He is very well traveled for someone of his age. Not many people at 44 years old have been the athletic director at 3 schools. Not many people are a Big Ten athletic director at 44. Frankly, it's a really impressive resume that he brings in the sense that he has experience as an athletic director. It's a double-edged sword, however you want to view that, because he doesn't have a ton of experience in the power conferences. He has 3 years of SEC experience at Vanderbilt. The rest of it is all at Group of 6 FCS type of schools. But a really unique track record, a really impressive resume. And what I think really stood out to me when Purdue hired him is that his background has so much to do with fundraising. And I think sometimes the athletic director job can be skewed in public opinion a little bit. Hiring and firing coaches is how athletic directors are most remembered. If you hired great coaches, you're going to be remembered fondly for the most part. If you didn't, then you're probably going to be fired. You're going to be ran out of town. I think you can look at the situation at Michigan more than anything, where about everything was a complete disaster under Ward Manuel, aside from the fact that Michigan won national championships in the 2 major sports, and it took a $13 million investigation into the athletic department or whatever it was to get him forced out in a settlement with a massive hush-hush fee, so to speak. It's like with Mike Babinski right now, right? Mike Babinski is going to be retiring on December 31st, and you can look at the public perception of his tenure in really 2 different splits, and that split took place the day Jeff Brom announced that he was going to leave to Louisville. As I recall, for the first 6-7 years of Mike Babinski's tenure at Purdue, the public perception was overwhelmingly positive. He had hired Jeff Brom. Matt Painter had gotten everything he needed, and basketball had continued to succeed and get better. Ross-Ade Stadium underwent major renovations and looked entirely different by the end of 2022, and would continue to look even more different by the start of 2023 than it did when Mike Babinski took the job and Ross-Ade Stadium didn't even have lights. But then Mike Babinski hired Ryan Walters, and that was an epic failure. And the landscape of college athletics greatly shifted as name, image, and likeness exploded. The collectives became bigger, and then revenue sharing came in. And then you've just seen the unregulated flow of money from boosters, donors to players has dramatically changed the landscape of the sport, and it hasn't been to the benefit of Purdue. So you see reaction on Twitter that is very vitriolic towards Babinski, and whether that's fair or not is totally up to you. Beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. I think there's plenty to praise about Mike Babinski and plenty to criticize. As is generally the case, the truth lies somewhere in the middle. But make no mistake, in this era of college sports, hiring and firing coaches is great. And you have to do it. It's part of the job. But the line that stood out the most to me from Tommy McClelland's press conference today was when he said something along the lines of, you can have great coaches, but if they don't have adequate resources to fund a competitive roster, they don't stand a chance. And that's a very strong statement on the realities that exist in college sports right now. It's one that I wholeheartedly agree with. You can hire and fire coaches all you want. And right now, as we talk about Purdue sports, so much of this is centered around fixing football. Purdue is blessed that it has possibly the most stable basketball program in America, led by who has to be the most stable head coach in America. Just Matt Painter's temperament, the way he builds his program, the way he manages his program is incredibly stable. That's something that you don't see very often. Basketball's in a great place. Purdue has to fix football. It is the albatross that exists right now. When you look at the world of revenue and revenue generation, there are two sports that make money. I would go as far as to say as Purdue is probably about maximizing what it can generate from men's basketball. It is very far from it in football. It is all about football. And his line there really stood out to me. You know, we don't know exactly the way Purdue's roster is funded this year, but we have never been led to believe that Purdue is some titan when it comes to funding its football roster. As Tommy McClelland gets settled in West Lafayette and he gets settled in his office in Mackey Arena, he'll be able to really get a feel for the way Purdue's football roster is funded. And through folks in the industry, he'll get an idea of how that compares in the Big Ten. But that's an important line. And that's an important deal when it comes to the concept of hiring and firing coaches. Tommy McClelland knows that you have to give coaches the proper resources to succeed. Whether that exists at Purdue or not right now, I don't know. But that was my big takeaway, is that Tommy McClelland is very aware of the importance of funding these rosters properly, and that his background as a fundraiser lines up with that really well. When you look at what Tommy McClelland has done, he oversaw a major facility renovation at Louisiana Tech. It looked like an athletic complex along with the football field. I'm not going to tell you that I know Reston, Louisiana particularly well. I've got no clue what things are like there. So I'll take Wikipedia and his profile's word for it that he did some facility renovation there. He oversaw a $300 million fundraising effort for Vanderbilt's athletic department, part of which was for that Vanderbilt Stadium renovation. And you saw, in some way at least, him help lay the groundwork for the success that Clark Lee has had there. Vanderbilt just had, a 10-win season last year? Did some good things the year prior as well. His hard work paid off at Vanderbilt to some degree. And at Rice, he had a background with really elevating the NIL program there at a really complicated school. Just because a school has money doesn't necessarily mean that its alumni want to spend that on sports. Look at Stanford. Not exactly an NIL powerhouse, even though that school has all the money in the world. I don't know that Rice is a particularly easy gig, but he talked about the way he helped transform Rice Stadium into something that can help make more money for that school, talking about concerts, talking about events there. It was really interesting to me to hear him talk about the history of Rice Stadium. I didn't know that John F. Kennedy had spoken there. And it was a very well done connection into Purdue's history as the cradle of astronauts, with John F. Kennedy having given his speech about space exploration and the pursuit of the moon landing at Rice Stadium. It was very interesting to me. Very interesting. But he has a background there in fundraising, in finding ways to generate revenue. And that's what his challenge is going to be at Purdue. It is going to be finding ways to maximize revenue, because right now, Purdue is a full committed participant to revenue sharing at the low 20 million mark that it exists at right now. That revenue sharing number is going to go up every year a little bit, but we know that the revenue sharing stuff hasn't worked as intended. The above the cap, above board spending is massive. There are tons of schools that are well well over $20 million. When you look at the proposal in the Protect College Sports Act of $48 million as your true cap, there are schools in the Big Ten spending more than that right now. There are schools in the state of Indiana spending more than that right now. Purdue's not one of them, but they exist. For Purdue, generating the revenue is going to be massive because if the Protect College Sports Act passes and is signed into law, which the odds of that change like the weather, it's unbelievable, then you're going to have to find a way to get to $48 million to pay your athletes every year. And if the Protect College Sports Act doesn't pass, then you're looking at, to some degree, the continuation of this current reality where Purdue is, you're seeing these schools drastically increase year over year the amount they're spending. I think back to 2 years ago when Ohio State won the national title in football and it was rumored to have a $20 million roster. Purdue has a roster in the low 20s this year. I mean, what are we doing here? And Purdue's on the lower end of the Big Ten there. There are Big Ten programs that are reportedly up over $40 million. You've seen this market for the upper end spend double just in a span of 24 months, if that. That's an area that A, is not particularly sustainable, but B, you have to fundraise like crazy for. So I think when you look at the hire of Tommy McClelland, I don't evaluate his track record based off coaching hires and fires because, frankly, I haven't had the time to look back at who he hired at McNeese, who he hired at Louisiana Tech. I know he recently hired a football coach at Rice. That is a tough, tough job. It's a tough athletic department in general. I'm not going to sit here and try to be an expert on that. But when you see a background in fundraising like that, you see a young guy with energy who clearly wasn't afraid to shake things up a little bit in his introductory press conference. That's where, to me, it's really intriguing. And everyone wants to grade the hire. And I don't know that that's appropriate. I don't know that I have anywhere near the information needed to grade an athletic director hire. I thought it was very intriguing to hear Mike Klipsch and Mitch Daniels at the press conference today talk about the interest pool that Purdue had in the job with athletic directors from coast to coast, with pro sports executives, with folks outside of the athletic world, deputy athletic directors. The report from Pete Thamel, maybe Matt Fortuna, a couple other people, was that Murray State's athletic director was a finalist, that Ken Halpin, current Purdue deputy AD overseeing men's basketball, was a finalist. I saw something that an Auburn deputy AD was a finalist. I'm not sure the qualifications of those besides Halpin. I'm fairly familiar with that situation. But it became pretty apparent early on that a G6 athletic director was the most likely way this was headed. There were a couple of Power 4 AD names that were floated out there, but it never seemed like that was the way this was going to go. It has been interesting. I mean, I will say it is interesting that we're in this world where the Big Ten and the SEC are a cut above, so to speak. Purdue has had 2 football coaching hires and an AD hire since then, since you saw that split, since USC and UCLA announced they were coming to the Big Ten. I think Oregon and Washington were there already as well, maybe. I know Texas and Oklahoma were announced to the SEC by that point. But Purdue hasn't plucked like an ACC or a Big 12 sitting head coach or athletic director. It's always been wondered if that was going to be something that Purdue would be capable of doing, given its status in the Big Ten Conference, but we haven't seen that happen. So it did become pretty clear that this was probably going to be a group of 6 athletic director. I think this makes a lot of sense, guys. I really do. I know Some folks love it, some folks hate it. The press conference today may not have done wonders to the fan base's perception of it, but the proof will be in the pudding. Tommy McClelland has a difficult job to do. He has to fundraise at a high level. The other thing too, he was he said what he needed to say about championships, but Purdue doesn't have an athletic department that is filled with championship programs. I myself enrolled at Purdue in August of 2017. Since that day, goodness, that was 9 years ago now. This is August of 2026. Since that day, Purdue has only won the Big Ten in men's basketball. Purdue has not won the Big Ten in any other sport. 18 other varsity sports at Purdue, 0 Big Ten titles. I believe Purdue in its history has only won 3 national titles, right? Golf and women's basketball. That's not exactly a championship program. Now, again, I don't know that sports like baseball and softball necessarily lend themselves to great success in the North. I couldn't even tell you the last time a Northern program has won it in baseball. But he has his work cut out for him. He's going to have a decision to make in women's basketball. That program has really fallen on hard times. But at the end of the day, his job is to increase revenue and get football back on the winning path. And those two are very strongly correlated. So I think this is a good hire. I think there is an energy. You heard Barry Odom in his press conference at the start of practice today talk about the vision that he has for Purdue Athletics. He did a sit-down interview with Brian Newbert at Gold and Black where he talked about some different ways that, he's seen revenue be generated and some different ideas he has. I know there's been conjecture about maybe some type of a mixed-use district next to Ross-Ade Stadium. I don't know. All of these are just ideas at this point. But the one thing that's not just an idea, the one thing that's a fact, is that in the year 2026, the amount of money in college athletics is astronomical. Purdue is in a position where it has Big Ten affiliation, and that's a big deal. Purdue has a seat at the proverbial table, but Purdue must increase revenue and find more success on the football field. And that's how Tommy McClelland's going to be judged. That's how his success will be judged, or lack thereof will be judged. And we're going to see where it goes. But I just wanted to come on and do a little bit of a quick podcast here. I don't have a ton else to add. We'll see. We'll see. Tommy McClelland's going to be visible. It sounds like he's going to be out and about. So we'll see what we hear from him, and we'll see where we're at. Maybe the next time he speaks with the media. Maybe that's later this fall. Maybe that's in the spring when Mike Babinski's officially out after December 31st. But a new era begins, and it's one that is crucial for the future of Purdue Athletics. So that's all I got for you today, guys. Next week, Brett Ciancia, Pick Six Previews, joins the podcast. We're going to talk all things Purdue football with Brett, talk about the Big Ten, and talk about what Purdue needs to do to get better. So I'm looking forward to recording that interview. Until then, guys, take care. Hey, as we wrap up this episode, I want to tell you about someone that I know and that I trust. That's myself. If you've been putting off reviewing your insurance, now's a great time to get a quote from me, Jordan Jones with Indiana Farm Bureau Insurance. Whether it's your home, auto, life, or business coverage, I'll take the time to understand what you need and make sure that you're properly protected. There's no pressure, no obligation, just a chance to see if you can get the right coverage at a competitive price. Give me a call at 317-846-5861 for a free quote, and be sure to mention that you heard about it right here on the podcast. Talk to me before next week's episode, and we'll get some quotes for you.